Hi guys, welcome to very first episode in the new series. When I will try to teach you how to do software. I'm a software developer from 20 years or even more, but I do not learn, I do not teach other developers. I learn a lot, but I do not teach. So this is my first attempt. Um I would like to make this tutorial a little bit different than many other tutorials I've seen over internet. The main goal is to keep, maybe not main goal, but the goal is to keep episodes short. Do not focus on a certain programming language. Uh, of course, for development, we need to pick some languages, but this is just a tool and nothing more. And now, what I can see, doing tons of code reviews and working with young developers, the biggest problem is lack of domain knowledge. Uh, it is very easy to learn how to code, but it is not that easy to learn how to code correctly. So without further ado, let's get started and see what we can do today. As you can see on my screen, it will be a network game, turn-based game, and I'm going to show you how to implement chess. It will not be maybe full implementation, that's not the goal. The goal is to go through whole process. So as I mentioned, the very beginning, before we even start coding, we need to gather some information about the game itself. So what do we know about the game? Game is on a board. Okay, it's a 8 by 8. There are 6 figures. It's the pawn, bishop, and next is knight, next is rook, then we have a queen, and of course the king. Okay, so first information we got. Now we need to define movements. Yeah, so sorry for my handwriting. That's not what I do often. About movements, pawn can move. Let's say this is start. Can move 1 or 2 straight. Bishop, it can go in angles, both directions. Knight can go 2 plus 1, right? Because it can go like this, and so on. Rook can go only straight, horizontally or vertically. Queen, it's a composition of bishop and rook, so it can go like this. And the king can move 1 in Okay, every direction, right? So that's very basic of information of our game, and because it will be a network game, we also need to think not in details, but have a general overview how the whole application may also look like. So that will be our network, yeah, and we may want to have one player here, one player here, and they need to be able to communicate. Yeah, so this means that they will communicate directly, but maybe we want to have some server here, so they will communicate via the server, but also maybe we want to have player versus player on a one machine. Yeah, it may look something like this. And because we didn't specify any particular programming language, neither on nodes nor on a server, so we need to have a data format that allow us to exchange information between those players. I mean, as a player, I mean server and every single element that is part of our infrastructure. In the past, probably you would choose, I would choose XML. My engineering paper is about the XML communication, but this is very heavy format, and in most cases it's not worth to implement. Today I suggest to use JSON. It's a format that came from JavaScript. It's a JavaScript object notation, very simple, very light, well known by most of the developers, supported probably by all languages in some way. So let's say as a format we will use JSON. Okay. Having these informations, we can talk a little bit more about single node. Yeah, so we know that we need, because there's a player versus player, so we start with two parts. It's like maybe not this one, but let's call this let's call this engine and user interface. The two pieces we need to be able to play in our chess in the player versus player mode. Later we may probably reuse this engine as a server with some API exposed, but for now let's focus on the smallest piece of our infrastructure without any network communication so far. There is also one very important note that I already missed preparing the specification. Pawn. Here we just specified movements, and for all figures but pawn, they can move, and they move and attack in the same way. But pawn can attack. Let's call this as attack. Start from this one. it can attack only in a V shape. Yeah, so it cannot move back and cannot attack straight. So this is the exception here. There are also a few other rules in check game, like castling, check, and all this kind of movements that we don't have to specify right now. We will specify them during implementation. We just need to be aware that this game has some rules, and we need to follow them. Otherwise, we will implement something else similar to chess, but not chess itself. What is also important as a rule is that we have two players. So player 1 and player 2, and this game is finished. I mean, there are no other variants, so there will be always two players. The figures are finished. There will be no more other figures or any other movements. So during implementation, we don't have to be very extremely flexible, because rules of the chess game will not change. If they will, it will not be chess anymore. Also, this is not a part of the, let's say, design, but I'm going to use Windows, and because of this, I will use this WSL, the Windows Linux on Windows, because the terminal in Linux allows us to give us more control over what we can do, how we can react for entering data, and so on. So if you are not familiar, check in the Microsoft documentation. I will put a link in the description box down below, how to install Ubuntu on Windows. If you're on Linux, you don't have to worry about this at all. And the very first version of this game, very first step, I will implement using PHP, and because currently okay, 20.05, so that's the version available on Windows, and it will be PHP 7.4. Even though version number 8 is available, but it is not available on Ubuntu, so I'm going to use number 7. It's good enough for our use, but I will use it in a little bit different way. We start from the console without any JavaScript, HTML, just pretty old school console layout. So that's all for this very first episode. We didn't start even coding yet, but that's correct. That's okay. The golden rule is to think twice, code once, not vice versa. In the next episode, we will prepare some user interface. There are different approaches. You can start from the top to bottom, or from the detail to general, and then vice versa. And there's also you can start from engine and then implement user interface. I will do this step by step. I mean, engine is very important, obviously, but user interface allows us to represent what the engine produces in nicer and easier to read way. That's why I will start from the user interface a little bit, then engine, and then next next pieces. What is also important for this tutorial is that I have scripted all the code to the very end. It's not recorded yet, so there will be, let's say, intentional bugs in the code, or some mistakes, or some uh, places to improve. So do not get angry or mad because I did something wrong. Okay, all comments are always welcome, but keeping it in mind that it might be fixed in the next or after a few episodes, because as I said, I have it scripted already. But mistakes, bugs, and solving such issues is also a part of development. It's not what is presented very often in other tutorials. Sometimes it is, but it's not very often. But it is absolutely natural way of coding. You code, you make mistake, you need to find it and fix it. So that's how it will be. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.